The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
All right, pretty typical Thursday. No Tony, but we do have some differences today in that we're going to talk about Army-Navy. We don't usually talk much about Army and Navy, but we are today. And we'll be joined at 10:20 by Scott Wyckoff, who does the pre and the post game for Navy Radio. And this year it's in Foxborough for the first time. First time they've ever had it in Boston. They had it in California once, maybe more than that, but I do remember 1984, and that's when they had it Thanksgiving weekend. They've since moved it to being the last and only regular season game that's played, and they will have that on Saturday at 3 o'clock, which is a great spot for it. They're up against nothing else, and they call it America's Game, and it's tremendous. I've been to 3 of them. And Scott, I guess, will be in Foxborough for this, and we'll paint the picture of what we can expect on Sunday. One of the things I want to ask him is both teams are 5-6, and with 82 teams for 41 bowl games, they've been really desperate to get 6-win teams. And it would seem to me that Army or Navy would be a little bit of a draw for any bowl. And it does not appear that the winner of this will get in. I guess this is going to be the final game of the year for both of them. Generally, one or sometimes both gets to a bowl game, but that's not going to happen this year, it appears, both of them 5-6. So we'll talk about that. Also, John Keim did a deep dive into how things unraveled for the Commanders this year, and there's some nuggets in there. It's a very long piece on ESPN.com. I urge you to read it. There are things that you know, and there are some things in there that you don't know, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the show. But I talked a lot yesterday about the Maryland basketball shooting woes, just how awful they have been shooting the basketball this year. They went into last night's game against Penn State 4-4 on the year, and that included an ugly loss at Indiana last week. But they've had non-conference losses. They had a bad one where they scored, I think it was only 40 points that they scored at Villanova. I mean, it's just mind-boggling how bad the shooting has been this year. And they went into last night's game with these numbers, shooting 41% from the field for the season. That ranked them 275 out of 362 teams. Their three-point percentage, 22%, ranked them even lower. 359 out of 362. Only 3 teams in the country worse shooting threes than Maryland, and the three-point shot, I don't think you can live without it anymore. You have to have some ability to shoot the three and spread the floor, and the game is changing in a way that you just cannot get by with terrible three-point shooting. Well, last night, they were even worse. 22% on the year. Now, not all of it, of course, has been against Big Ten-level teams. They've played some mid-majors, but still, the three-point shooting, they were 5 for 25. That's 20%. And from the field, they were worse than their 41% for the season. They shot 34.3%. But they managed to take Penn State to overtime after a bad start, and Penn State lost both of their big men, including Qudus Wahab, who is, I guess, intent on playing for every school on the East Coast before he uses up his eligibility. He's made 2 stops at Georgetown, 1 at Maryland, and now he's at Penn State in his last year of eligibility. He fouled out, and then his backup, Lilly, also fouled out, so that allowed Julian Reese to be able to do his thing, and he played well for Maryland. He was 7 of 11 from the field and had 24 points with 15 rebounds. For him, he shot well from the free throw line. He's got a really ugly stroke. He is not a good free throw shooter, which is not a good thing for a big man, because if you get to the hack the big man, they're in trouble, and they had to take him off the floor in offensive situations. But fortunately for them, Jameer Young was able to lock it up at the line, going 12 for 12. But as a team, they missed 9 free throws, too. I mean, Penn State didn't miss theirs. They were 19 of 21. Maryland, 30 for 39. But they did manage to win the game. Kevin Willard, coach of the team, what do you say about this? You say you're impressed when you shoot 20% from 3 and 34% from the field? No, you really don't. But you point to what Julian Reese did with 24 points and 15 rebounds.
I think Julian Reese is really developing into a heck of a leader, to be perfectly honest with you. He was the one after we we went into overtime, he was the guy really talking and just saying, "Hey, let's go. We got 5 more minutes. Let's figure this out. Let's find a way." Yeah, I mean, we did some stupid things, but it was a lot of stupid things by guys that are going to learn from it and get better from it and won't do it again. That's part of having a lot of guys that haven't been in this situation before and haven't played in this league. So they'll get there.
Well, yeah, there was a play at the end of, was it regulation? Yeah, it was the end of regulation where Penn State was down by 2. And there was just a ridiculous foul on an inbounds. I mean, just really foolish. They only had 4 seconds left, and that's what sent the game to overtime. But they did win. So it's one of those things. It's not survive and advance yet, but if you go 0-2 to start the season in the Big Ten, and you're 4-5, and the home win streak is broken, they've now won 16 straight at home. I mean, where do you go from there? So this is kind of like, okay, it's a win, but it's not really a win to feel good about. More from Willard.
I mean, I think anytime you win a conference game, I think that's the first thing. You're just relieved that you won a conference game. But just looking at our numbers, there's really no joy right now. It's just, I'm happy we won and glad that we pulled it out. I'm happy for these kids that work so hard, but we just have a lot of stuff we have to fix.
Yeah, well, they got some time to do it, and another tune-up game coming up next week. That's against Alcorn State. So they get back into the teeth of the Big Ten next month. But I guess you can fix the shooting. And what he keeps saying is, we got young guys, got freshmen. They got 2 of them. Kaiser, who's supposed to be a really good 3-point shooter, he was 2 of 7 last night. 2 for 8. From 2 for 7 from 3, 2 for 8 on the night. And then Deshaun Harris-Smith, the highly touted guard that they got from Paul VI, one of the top recruits in the country, he's a 48% free throw shooter. You can't play guard in college basketball and be a 48% free throw shooter. He did go 3 for 5 last night, but he was 2 of 6 from the field, and he's really got to get himself going if they have any chance of being a tournament team. I don't know whether that's, even at this point, even though they've only played 9 games, is it likely they get into the tournament? Well, they're going to have to pull some upsets to do it, and they're going to have to win road games, which they haven't been good at doing. They have not played well on the road, much better at home, and they got to find a way to win some road games. All right, let's get to RG3. And I know I'm going to get pounded on Twitter where people say, "Oh, all you do is pick on him." Well, I studied a little bit of psychology in college. My sister was a psychology major. He is a psychological buffet. And yesterday, RG3 was on with Dan Patrick. And he was on as an analyst, mostly for college football. And it was his position that Florida State got screwed. There seems to be a real divide on that as to how people feel about Florida State not getting in. But he's in the camp of they should have gotten in. They were undefeated in a major conference, and they got screwed. Okay, that's a legitimate thought. But let me get to some of the stuff here, which I think illustrates, at least to me, that he's really got some issues here that have to be worked out. I mentioned this yesterday. If you're watching the handoff from the pregame show that Scott Van Pelt hosts, or the countdown show on ESPN, to Joe Buck and Troy Aikman in the booth, you had Michelle Beisner, who's Buck's wife. She's the sideline reporter, I guess, this year, and RG3. And in Jacksonville, they have a pool in the stadium. So the throw from the pregame show to the game broadcast is going to come from the pool where Michelle Beisner is standing next to Robert Griffin III. And she does this little wrap-up of, what we can expect and this, that, and the other. And then he decides in his suit, he's going to jump in the pool. He jumped in the pool. And he is, I think, incredibly needy for attention. He'll do anything for attention. And as I said yesterday, either you want to be an analyst or you want to be the Gronk lunkhead. And I don't think you can be both. But he's trying to pull off both. He wants to be the class clown, and he wants to be the smartest guy to tell you exactly, why this happened and what we can expect. And he's good at that. He's smart. He's smart and he's glib. He's good. But his thirst for attention is I think going to be an issue for him. So I had to laugh at this when he was on with Dan Patrick yesterday, and Patrick asked him where he keeps his Heisman Trophy, and he said in a closet in his house.
Still be in the closet. I'm not the guy that holds up a shrine to himself or puts a bunch of trophies up and all that. If you really know me and you can get to the closet, then you'll get a chance to see the Heisman.
I'm not the guy that puts up a shrine to himself. Really? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I don't put up a shrine to myself. This is a guy you may remember when he was thriving as the Redskins quarterback and he got married. He put his registry up online so that people could buy gifts for him. And this was, I guess, sort of the early days of Twitter. When did it start? 2009, I think. And so it was 4 years old at this point. Not everybody was using Twitter, but a lot of people were. And people would tweet nice things about him. He'd always retweet them. Always. All the time. You know, and so to say he doesn't put up a shrine to himself, please stop. All right, and then we move on. Then Dan wants to talk about speed, about what we saw from Tyreek Hill on Sunday when he torched the Commanders. And he opened the question about speed to Griffin this way, and you'll hear where Griffin kind of takes offense to what Dan said. Here we go.
You had world-class speed, but let's look at Tyreek Hill's speed. How would you describe? There's fast, and then fast guys looking at somebody saying, that guy's fast.
Oh, yeah. Tyreek is he's instant grits. You know what I mean? Like as soon as he puts his foot down, he's at full speed. And I think that's the difference. I appreciate you saying that I have world-class speed, but there's a difference between like.
Do you still have world-class speed?
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm. So he's got that. Dan makes the throw and said, you had world-class speed. So Griffin starts to answer the question, but it's sticking in his craw that Dan used had instead of have. So he kind of slips that in there. I appreciate you saying I had world-class speed. And Dan is listening. That's the sign of a great interviewer. And he's, I think, the best sports interviewer in the business. And he's listening. So do you still have world-class speed? Yes, I do. So Patrick files that back. They circle back to this. And if he does, in fact, have world-class speed, and he has said many times he wants to play, Dan says, let's mine that. So here's the questioning based on what he said about still having world-class speed.
Did you reach out to the Jets to try to play quarterback for them?
You mean like Colin Kaepernick? I did not.
You did not.
I didn't do that.
But there are stories that you have offered your services.
Cleveland? No. I haven't. I personally have not reached out to a team to say, yeah.
Has a representative reached out?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, representatives reach out all the time. You know,
but they have to have your approval.
No, they don't. No, they don't. If you have an agent. If you have an agent and someone's reaching out to teams on your behalf, they don't ask you if they can reach out to that team. They just reach out to the team. So what I'll say is what I have done is I have publicly stated that I can play. I'm willing and able to play. I want to play. And if a team just so happens to call my number, I'm ready to play. I have said that. I said the Browns should have signed me. I thought they should have. Okay. They didn't. They went with Joe Flacco. Guess what? Joe Flacco looked really good this past week. For a guy that's just coming off the couch, he looked really good going out there playing. And I'm sure the Jets wish they had Joe Flacco right now. Yeah. Or Zach Wilson, because they need him back badly.
Now, this sort of changes the narrative a bit. I got an extra set of ears here today with Rex Minturn. So let's explore this. You've heard RG3 say that he's had contact with teams, right? And last had contact, I guess, in August. And he's publicly reached out and said to Cleveland, you ought to sign me as the starting quarterback. Now he sort of changes it here, right? He's got supposedly representatives who reach out for him, and he doesn't even know whether they're doing it or not, right?
Yeah, it sounds like he's saying, because he didn't get signed, he's like, well, I threw it out there.
Yeah. So he's saying, and Dan says, well, don't they have to have your approval? Because he's always said, it's got to be the right fit. So, it's like if somebody represents me, and I have had representation, I had an agent for about 20 years, and he would, if he was going to pitch me for something, he would say, are you interested in this? And I think in this case, same thing. Hey, Robert, I'm going to call the Jets. Is that okay? And there, I guess, when he says right fit, doesn't mean he turned anything down. So, this is really, it's just sad. It's kind of pathetic what is going on with him. And I think he really needs to assess where he is out of football now. This would be his second full season or third full season. I think it's his third, right?
I think second.
Second? I thought he played in 2021 for the last time. And this is 2022 and 23. So second. Okay, so maybe he did play in 2021 briefly, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, whatever. I mean, he's been out too long. Nobody's calling him. And so when he says there was contact, yeah, the contact is some guy who says, hey, Robert, can I call? Well, yeah, sure, go ahead. He's calling teams, and the general manager goes, RG3? Really? No. Tell your guy thanks, but no thanks. So there's that. And then he decided to go this route, too, when he was discussing what happened with the Zach Wilson leak from players on the team, saying to Diana Rossini that he was reluctant to play. And so, once again, and he does this a lot, here's RG3, the victim.
Aaron Rodgers is 100% right when he talks about the sources in the building going out there and trying to undercut Zach Wilson now. That is completely wrong. I'm sure Rodgers has experienced it at some point in his career. I certainly did. That's not what winning organizations do.
Uh-huh. Well, who would have, leaked it out? He's the one who got benched and said he's still the best quarterback in the league. I mean, it's just what happened here. You talk about undermining. He undermined the head coach with the cooperation of the owner. He and Dan Snyder undermined Mike Shanahan, who did go 3-13 in his last year with a group of assistant coaches who now populate the league, including his son, who may win a Super Bowl this year. So you talk about leaks and undermining. You were the king of it, RG3. You were the king. All right, let's turn to baseball. Juan Soto goes to the Yankees. We'll talk about that. Ohtani is still out there on the open market. And what Adam Silver says about something that I kind of scoffed at, but apparently is quite popular, the in-season tournament. Stay with us. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
We're in for Tony today, 10:20. We'll talk about the Army-Navy game with Scott Wyckoff, who is the pre- and post-game host for Navy Radio, as the midshipmen are going to be in Boston, along with the Army cadets. First time ever they've held the Army-Navy game up there in Foxborough, and we'll get the picture on that. Also, we'll talk about what happened 60 years ago today in connection with the Army-Navy game, the first use of instant replay. Instant replay dominates sports now. Everything. I mean, we do the Zapruder film on just about everything. Look at it frame by frame. It was the first time 60 years ago today that you could actually see a play replayed moments after it was over. That was a brand new thing, and it took a yeoman effort to get it done. And we'll go through that in the 10 o'clock hour as well. Meantime, the baseball winter meetings are going on. Nothing earth-shattering from the Nationals. They picked up an ex-Cardinals prospect, Juan Yepez, who's 25 years old. He's an outfielder, so he may be a fit at the end of the bench, or maybe he'll get a late call-up or something like that. They also went in the Rule 5 draft, and they took a shortstop, Nasim Nunez, from the Florida Marlins system. So, no big moves so far, and certainly none for Juan Soto, who winds up with the Yankees. It's a 7-player deal, and that sets their outfield because they made a rare trade with the Red Sox. They picked up Alex Verdugo for 3 pitchers the other night, so that would set their outfield with Judge, Verdugo, and Soto. Soto's only got 1 year left on his contract, but I would be surprised if the Yankees let him go. Left-handed hitter in that stadium, and he just never seemed to be a great fit with the Padres. And the Yankees, I think he may thrive there, and he's got a really good personality. I don't think the media is going to bother him or anything, so I think that's a good move for him, and probably a good move for the Yankees, who will have to pay whatever it takes, and it's going to be, we're going to see what happens really with contracts probably in the next few days. The market is going to be set now with a new high. It's going to come from Shohei Ohtani, and it's probably going to be well over $500 million. And I'm hearing people like Jeff Passan say it could be north of $600 million if the bidding gets high enough. But the Dodgers, who many people feel that's where he's going to wind up, may have pissed him off the other day because they publicly said something about it. The manager spilled the beans to the media, and that, I don't think it's going to kill the deal, but there's some talk that it might, that Ohtani's going to walk away because they handled it in a way that he didn't want it handled. Tony Kornheiser, Mike Wilbon kicking that around yesterday on PTI.
Dave Roberts saying out loud, how dare he, that his team had met with free agent Shohei Ohtani. Roberts was admonished by the Dodgers GM, his own boss, Brandon Gomes, for going public, which reportedly is exactly what Ohtani and his agent don't want. Tony, you think Roberts hurt or helped the Dodgers' quest for Ohtani by admitting, oh my God, what a sin, that they'd met?
Yeah. So I've been reading a lot of baseball writers lately, and they're bemoaning the sort of secrecy of the Shohei Ohtani free agency. They want this to be a public courtship. They say that would be good for baseball because Ohtani is such a popular figure. It's as if they want, Mike, every single day a Google map to tell you where Ohtani is and who he has talked to. And one of the reasons they feel that way is because I believe it's since August when Ohtani got hurt that he has not been answering questions about himself. So I tend to side with baseball writers most of the time. But in this case, if the player isn't talking and the agent isn't talking, the only other place you can go to is the Uber driver. Now, in terms of how this impacts
the GPS.
Ohtani,
The GPS.
how this impacts Ohtani, I would be very surprised if anything that Dave Roberts said, short of "I don't want that guy," is going to have any effect on where Ohtani goes. He's going to pick the city that he wants, the team that he wants, the teammates that he wants. Mike, if he wants the Dodgers, he'll go there no matter what Dave Roberts did. And if that's enough to take him to another team, I think that would be foolish. I do.
It'd be more than foolish. If simply somebody admitting that they met you is enough to drive you away, I don't want you because you're not going to be a winner. Because people who, Tony, there are a lot of great athletes, great athletes who never won. And their self-absorption is often the common thread. I've got to control every single activity, not just of me and my teammates in the clubhouse, but everybody in the world. Those guys tend not to work out as well as they think they do. So if that's what Ohtani and his agents are obsessed with, take a walk, go somewhere else, because here's what you haven't done as great as you are. You haven't won a damn thing. Yeah. You haven't even gotten close. So if that's your obsession, other than getting in here and playing, go away. Go somewhere else.
I would like to believe that it's more the agent than it is the player. Apparently, according to Bob Nightingale, who usually gets it right, we're down to 4 teams now. Sorry to tell you your Cubs are out, but there's Toronto, the Angels, there's the Giants, and there are the Dodgers. Over the last 5 to 10 years, the Dodgers are by far the best of those teams in terms of achievement and getting into the playoffs and games won. So, I mean, to me, that seems the logical place for him to go.
Yeah, seems like the Dodgers will eventually get him. Why it's taking so long, we don't know. To basketball. And, okay, I'm 65 years old, so keep that in mind. But when I turn on the TV and I see a red court, it's off-putting to me. And the city that I live in has one of the worst NBA teams, the now 3-17 Washington Wizards. So they were never going to be competitors in this in-season tournament. But we now have the Final Four, and I would say one of them is a big surprise here. Actually, 2 of them are. You might expect the Lakers to be there. They are. You might expect the Bucks to be there. They are. But the two teams that are facing them are mid-market teams that don't draw a lot of basketball attention, the Indiana Pacers and the New Orleans Pelicans. And the Pacers will play the Bucks in a game that starts at 5 o'clock, 5 o'clock on ESPN. Now, I'm wondering, did they intentionally put this game at 5 o'clock to try and reach me? That, it seems like, and Rex, you're the target audience in your mid-20s. They want you, and they're going to grow with you, they hope, this in-season tournament, where the prize money is apparently a factor, and it should be. It's $500,000 for each winning player plus coach, so they want that. But do you think that's in play, that they're starting this at 5 o'clock?
Possibly. I mean, I think this is for all basketball fans. The Lakers gave up 101 points 2 nights ago. That's right up your alley.
Yeah, that's true.
You want defense?
That's true. And the feedback is good from fans, not necessarily from me, but for the ratings are up. And the players are into it, which is what really the intent of it was. This was to cut down on the load management. So you're going to see the Pacers play the Bucks at 5. That's going to be on ESPN. And the TNT game, which will start at 9, it's the Pelicans against the Lakers. And we will have both games here on ESPN 630 starting at 4:30 in the afternoon. And as his team was eliminated the other night, you heard this from Kevin Durant of Phoenix, who said to reporters something I thought I would never hear from a player. This is Durant talking to the media.
I wasn't a huge fan of the in-season tournament when they were announcing it and coming up with the idea, but today, leading up to the game, it felt like a playoff game.
Hey, can you stop?
It felt like a playoff game from just friends, family, fans, just so excited about it. Just the courts was different, just the vibe around. Last night was a great night for the game with those two incredible games that were on. So it felt like a playoff game coming into it and waking up this morning. So I wasn't a huge fan, but now I'm excited about the in-season tournament. I'm pissed that we're not going to Vegas to try to win this thing, but it definitely made me a fan.
Now, he doesn't need a free trip to Vegas, but, athletes think in a kind of a different way. Hey, we could have gone to Vegas and hang out with the other, because there's 4 teams there, right? So that's another bonus there. Instead of just, like a regular road trip, it's get to hang out with players from 3 other different teams.
Yeah, and it sounds like Halliburton mentioned this after their last game, that he was like, I bet a lot of players across the league wish they had taken the group stage more serious.
Right.
So I think next year the group stage is going to be even better.
And I am surprised. I'm surprised by this. The money, the money certainly is a factor and should be a factor, but the competition is driving these guys. And like LeBron, he went right from high school to the pros, so he never had the college experience. Durant actually did. He played at Texas for a year, and they made it to the NCAA tournament. I think it was the Sweet 16 that they went out. So he's been through this before, and he didn't look at it like, hey, look at this hairy high school stuff. No, and it's December basketball. And this is when the NBA gets swallowed by football. They don't have any presence, but now they seem to have some presence here. And I thought Adam Silver was nuts when he suggested this and, compared it to the way they have these in-season soccer tournaments and said, it might have the same kind of effect. But it seems to be doing that. So when Silver showed up yesterday on the Pat McAfee show, McAfee said, well, would you like to take a bow right now?
No victory lap yet. Let's wait till we get through Saturday. So we got, of course, Thursday semifinals and the ultimate cup game. And thanks for wearing that jersey.
Hey.
On Saturday.
Thank you.
One thing that we knew from the beginning, it was so interesting to hear Kevin there, because when people asked me, how would you know if it was successful? Of course, you can look at attendance, you can look at ratings and social media chatter, and even the fact that we're talking about it now are all signs of success. But I said, it'll be measured in terms of the enthusiasm of the players. Will they take it seriously? Will they compete? Will they play, as opposed to load management in these regular season games? Will they care about winning? Will they care about going to Vegas? Will they care about the prize money? And it seems like Katie just checked off the whole list right there in terms of things, including the colorful courts that I know are a little bit controversial. But so I think from that standpoint, a great start. And in terms of our belief that this could be successful, again, you think 30% of the players in this league roughly are born outside the United States. Many of them grew up soccer fans around the world or competing in international basketball tournaments where there were often cups along the way. I mean, I had a kind of conversation the other day with J.J. Redick, of course, a colleague on ESPN now, and even he and I were talking about when he was at Duke that they didn't call them cup competitions, but there was holiday tournaments and the Alaska Shootout and things like that. And so, and LeBron, as LeBron said, I think it was last night too after the game, that these are the most competitive people in the world, and if you give them a format to compete and their prizes and it's structured in a way where they can do things like get to Vegas and get additional prize money, they're going to be all in. So I'm thrilled to see that. I'll only say in terms of the victory lap, a lot of learning from the first time around, a lot that people want to talk about. I'm sure we can improve on it, but we're off to a great start.
No question. And I'm surprised. And like many times, I was wrong. I was wrong on this, and it does seem to be an initial success. Now, you got to sustain these things, and, we'll see where it is 2 years from now. But, yeah, I think it'll be something that people will be talking about going into next season. And to have the championship on this weekend where there really isn't much college football going on besides the Army-Navy game, that's good. It's a good move. All right, now this, though. And this is really – this is when it goes too far. They're talking about the winner of this tournament perhaps putting a banner in the rafters of their arena. When I saw this, I threw up in my mouth. This is like when Ted had his Mystics hang a attendance banner. Or maybe that was pre-Ted. I don't. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't blame Ted on that. It might have been Susan O'Malley when she was still running the operation for A. Poland. But yeah, they hung attendance banners. You're going to hang a banner for this? Damian Lillard said, and he's right, he would rather just take the money than hang a banner. Tyrese Halliburton of the Pacers sounded excited about it, and he said, I think at this point in my career, because I haven't done anything yet, I'll take a banner, but certainly Bron would not answer the same way. Well, at least he has that kind of perspective. And then you have Pelicans coach Willie Green, who said about the banner, absolutely, when asked if they would raise it. I mean, not that the Wizards would win this, but if they put up a banner for this right next to, it's really dusty and old, but the 1978 NBA championship banner, I would laugh at that. Rex, what would you think of this? Does this make any sense to you? I'm against the banner. I think you should do something, but not a banner. No. And yes, if the Lakers do win this, I'm sure LeBron is going to say, "Oh no, not going to do that." No, absolutely.
They don't have enough space up there anyway.
Yeah, with the Lakers, right? There's plenty of space at Capital One Arena, but no, that doesn't go up. All right, I got a couple of minutes for this. Let me throw this in because I would urge you to read it. It's a very long piece that was done by John Keim. And there's a lot of stuff in there that you already know about the unraveling of this season. They have, by the way, raised ticket prices for season ticket holders next year, average of about 9%. Look, I don't think that's really out of line. They've only done it once since 2013, and for good reason, because they've been an embarrassment and can't sell any tickets. But they have had sellouts, and I think that's something that's within reason. And if you don't want to buy the season tickets, well, you don't have to. I don't know why anybody would necessarily buy season tickets anyway, since you can buy what you want on StubHub. But okay, that's what they're doing. This is Keim looking at basically what's happened since the trade deadline. And you go back to October 30th when they traded Montez Sweat and Chase Young, and he said they were gone within a very short period of time. Young going to San Francisco and Sweat going to the Chicago Bears. And he writes, within league circles, the terms of the trade were viewed as favorable for the Commanders, but that didn't mean it felt like a win for Martin Mayhew, Marty Herney, or Ron Rivera. Today has not been a good day, a personnel source said in a text to ESPN on the evening of October 30th. Well, certainly not for that group. They're going to be gone anyway. Coaches, including Rivera and the since-fired defensive coordinator Jack Del Rio, wanted to keep Sweat. I think the organization would have kept Sweat, but I think the offer from the Bears was more than they expected, so they let him go. And it goes on to say in this piece that this was not ordered by Josh Harris, but Harris kind of let it be known that they might be interested in getting some draft capital, so they looked at it kind of like – and remember, October 30th, they're still realistically in this. I mean, the players and team and coaches don't necessarily look at a season like we do. If they think they're still in it, they still think they have a chance to win a Super Bowl. That's their mindset. So October 30th, they don't think the season's down the tubes, but they're also trying to appease an owner who I think they still think has a chance to keep them on board. He talked about the bets that Rivera made, betting on Sam Howell, who had only thrown 19 passes, and then Eric Bieniemy. And here's where we get into Bieniemy, and this I think is a part worth highlighting here. This is again from John Keim's story. Well, Howell has performed admirably, and Bieniemy has proved he can both design and implement an offense. Rivera's wager on the 54-year-old coach has been something less than an instant jackpot. Rivera relinquished a degree of power and, by extension, some authority within the team by bringing in Bieniemy. Rivera wanted to shake things up after the firing of Scott Turner by giving Bieniemy influence over the team's regular season practice and meeting schedules, among other areas. Like the Chiefs, the Commanders have switched to a Monday off day during game weeks instead of the customary Tuesday. Some players, including team veterans and those with families, have not warmed to it. It's what Bieniemy wants, one player grumbled. Okay, so this is kind of new. We knew about what was going on in training camp when Rivera, as he said, put his foot in his mouth. But this is in-season stuff. So we're starting to hear things about Bieniemy, that it's not all hunky-dory, and he and Howell are not Thelma and Louise and the whole deal. Among the players' other issues earlier in the year, per team sources, was that afternoon offensive meetings frequently ran long and got in the way if players needed treatment. Bieniemy's initial concession was to allow players to use foam rollers on the floor of the meeting rooms to save time. Ooh, that doesn't sound good. In recent weeks, Bieniemy has relaxed some of his demands, including shortening Wednesday practices from 2 hours to closer to an hour and a half. Quote from one player, unnamed player, "He's gotten better at respecting our time." But Bieniemy's approach remains a matter of some debate. In training camp, when star receiver Terry McLaurin intervened after defensive back Benjamin St. Juste hit a teammate in what McLaurin deemed to be an overzealous manner, Bieniemy fired an expletive warning to him to return to the huddle. McLaurin wouldn't back down, vowing to defend his teammate. As one chief source says of Bieniemy, he's demanding, he'll push people, he doesn't care if he ruffles feathers, and apparently Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce needed pushing. Well, I think the proof is in the pudding there. The pushing apparently worked. Multiple sources said Bieniemy and the offensive coaches work well past midnight some nights during the week, less than standard practice in the NFL that typically includes early morning starts to the weekday. One member of the staff said while the long hours are a testament to Bieniemy's stamina, the pace is nearly impossible to maintain, even in the notoriously sleep-deprived NFL coaching profession, due to the length of the season. So I don't know how much of a factor that is, but it seems like the modern coaches are not like Joe Gibbs. They don't sleep in the office anymore. After a 14-7 loss to the Giants October 22nd, McLaurin was critical of the scheme, lamenting the low number of fades and crossing routes called for him against the Giants' blitz. Howell threw McLaurin his first fade late in the third quarter for a 27-yard gain. And this is what McLaurin said after the game. "I would definitely like to see us continue to get those up early, because I think it really forces defenses to play more honest. It's like, hey, you waited till the third quarter to throw me a fade?" He said they can't blitz and the safeties are at 10 to 12 yards. They can't do that if you're beating them down the field. So there's criticism there. And you're starting to hear things that McLaurin is chafing at Bieniemy, and that I think is going to be another factor in Bieniemy not being here next year. McLaurin, who was held without a catch in Sunday's loss to the Dolphins, has met weekly with Bieniemy since the criticism, and Bieniemy said to ESPN, "I've had conversations with a number of players, and the beauty of it is some are very good and productive. I wish they would share some of their thoughts with me, because when all said and done with, it's about us that we're going to have to feel what's best for the team. So what he's saying is McLaurin shouldn't have said what he said publicly. He should have said it to me. Okay, I don't know if they have that type of relationship. And then he talked about the firing of Jack Del Rio, where Rivera went home, slept about an hour, got in his office real early, waited till 8 o'clock to call Josh Harris, spending his time mapping out the new structure and coaching responsibilities. And then it says Rivera visited Del Rio's office to deliver the news. An interaction coaching staff sources characterized as professional but less than warm. Rivera then exited Del Rio's office, took a few steps into the office of defensive backs coach Brent Wieselmeyer, and delivered another blunt message. Wies, we have to let you go. They knew this was ending eventually, a team source says. They just got it early. Well, of course they had to know that. And I guess I knew this, but maybe didn't know this, that Del Rio was not extended this year. This was the last year of his contract. And they did that with all the coaches except Bieniemy, who got a 2-year deal. So, everybody goes into this kind of knowing it's a lame duck year. And even with Rivera with 2 years left, that's pretty much standard operating procedure. That's your severance. You get fired with a year to go. And then they talked about what happened to the defense when they struggled. And with Del Rio and Wieselmeyer, they made the scheme more complicated than simpler. And it did seem like they regressed defensively. I mean, they weren't very good overall. This is not a top 10 defense that returned from last year, but that's apparently part of it. And then you heard Rivera say this last week, hey, we're going to simplify things. We're going to simplify things. Well, they did, but they gave up 45 points this past week. And so, they say Del Rio's scheme was built on discipline up front, especially within rushing lanes, and Young was known to freelance. Well, we sort of knew that, right? We knew that was a problem. That's why they didn't have any trouble dealing him. I think they were intent on getting rid of Young. I think Sweat, they were just given an offer that was better than they thought they were going to get. And then the draft picks that haven't worked out. Yes, Jamin Davis is starting, but he was a first-rounder in 2019. Cam Curl, 7th round 2020, has been productive. 2022 second-round pick Fedarian Mathis has played 6 games in 2 years because of injury. Juan Martin has barely played, and he got lit up on Sunday. You know what's happened with Emmanuel Forbes. William Jackson III, the free agent signing, that didn't work out. They cut him last year. And then this. Several team sources said Rivera defers to his coordinators on decision-making, sometimes to a fault. Ron needed to take more ownership, one of the team sources said. And that's probably true. He even talked early in the season about how clock management went. He said they left it all up to Bieniemy. That seems odd for a head coach. When reached by ESPN for this story, a spokesman for Josh Harris added that while ownership is disappointed by the team's struggles on the field this season, optimism for the future remains strong. And they say that the relationship between Harris and Rivera is solid and respectful. So I think, I think this is, I think, the overriding thing about Rivera and this season. His record now 26, 36, and 1, with 1 playoff appearance and only 1 non-losing season. Multiple team sources said they believe Rivera is at peace with his tenure, a theme he alluded to in a Week 11 news conference. That's when he talked about all the S that he had gone through in 3.5 years, yada, yada, yada. So I think he pretty much knew that this was going to be his last year unless you had an unbelievable year out of Hal, and that probably wasn't going to happen. I think he put his chips in the middle of the table and said, look, it's a new owner coming in. I got to be really successful based on my last 3 years to stay. So let's roll the dice here. Let's bring in the coordinator from Super Bowl champion team in Kansas City and Bieniemy, put him with this quarterback. And if you mix them together and you get like peanut butter and chocolate together, you got Reese's peanut butter cups and you're set. But they didn't do that. One source close to the team wondered from the FedEx sideline before the Week 5 loss to the Bears, do you think Harris paid $6 billion for the former Carolina regime? And that to me was in place long before Harris got here. I felt that in the first 3 years that Rivera was here. Too many ex-guys from Carolina. He got fired in Carolina. He got to a Super Bowl, but bringing in all of Carolina from a failure just wasn't going to work out. Next hour, we'll get to the Juan Soto trade. He goes to the Yankees, plus what the Nationals have been doing at the winter meetings. Comments from Mike Rizzo and Davey Martinez. And Scott Wyckoff will join me at 10:20, talk about Army-Navy. Don't go away. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. And we go till noon today. Tony Kornheiser is off. We'll talk to Scott Wyckoff at 10:20 about the Army-Navy game coming up Saturday. And it was 60 years ago today in the Army-Navy game that instant replay made its debut. Could you imagine watching sports today on television without instant replay? I mean, it engulfs all sports. And 60 years ago, we didn't have it at all. And the primitive way that they were able to bring it to us 60 years ago is really remarkable. And we'll get to that story coming up. I saw this today, and my first thought was, my God, how much money is the NFL awash in? They are absolutely swimming in cash. Dateline, Jacksonville, Florida. A former Jacksonville Jaguars financial employee is accused of stealing more than $22 million from the franchise over a 4-year period. $22 million. You know, sometimes when you own a business, you notice some things that as you do your accounting, and we're like $300 short or something. $22 million, and it took 4 years for anybody to notice this. The U.S. State's Attorney's Office charged Amit Patel with wire fraud and illegal monetary transaction, alleging that Patel, who held various titles during his tenure with the Jags, including most recently manager, financial planning, and analysis, used his position as the sole overseer of the franchise's program to fund lavish personal purchases and cover up his theft. So he was stealing money from the organization at a huge clip. $22 million. That's unbelievable. We were talking about the 50th anniversary of the Capitol Center. Capitol Center was built for $15 million. I know it's a long time ago, but $22 million is missing, and it takes you 4 years to find out. According to the court filing, Patel is accused of stealing $22 million and using some of that money for purchases that include a condominium in Ponte Vedra Beach, a Tesla Model 3 sedan, cryptocurrency, chartering private jets, luxury hotel stays, a country club membership, and luxury wristwatches. So he's wearing expensive watches on his wrists. I mean, this is like an accounting job. And he got away with $22 million until being caught. They didn't fire him until February of this year. NFL, man, there's just so much money flowing in there that, we lost $22 million. Hey, that doesn't seem right. Let's look into that. Wow, unbelievable. All right, Juan Soto, speaking of money, Juan Soto, who turned down, $460 million to stay here, has a year left before he hits free agency. And last night, he was traded from the Padres to the Yankees in a 7-player deal. The Yankees also received outfielder Trent Grisham. And in exchange, San Diego received right-handers Michael King, Yoni Brito, and Randy Vasquez, starting pitching prospect Drew Thorpe, and a catcher whose last name I won't even try to pronounce. And so he goes there, and that shores up their outfield because they made the trade for Alex Verdugo recently, and then with Aaron Judge, they're all set at this point, and they've got Giancarlo Stanton, who could play outfield, but he's mostly a DH at this time. Says the Padres never actually offered Soto a contract extension. He was offered one here. They traded him away. They got the sense that Scott Boras wants to hit the open market. I think he's going to wind up staying with the Yankees. That's just my feel, that they're not going to let him get away. He's a left-handed hitter in that ballpark, and he's been compared to Ted Williams, barring just, he can't deal with the media there. He can't but he doesn't show any signs of that. He seems like he's got his head on straight. He got off to a really bad start last year with the Padres, but he eventually turned it around. As Mike Rizzo likes to say, you usually reach what you show on the back of your baseball card. No matter what kind of slump you go through, you eventually reach that. But before this deal went down, Davey Martinez was talking to the media, and just to show you how much he thought of Juan Soto, he said this.
Are we going to get him? I'll take him back. I'll take him back.
What was your experience managing him for 5 years?
I love him. I've said this since I've known the kid. I love him. I mean, he's a competitor. As you know, he's one of the purest hitters in the game. but he's a game changer. So, I've always wished him the best. Whoever does get him, if San Diego decides to keep him, I mean, they know they got a good one, but wherever he ends up, they're going to get a really good player.
No kidding. Maybe one of the best. I mean, he's 25 years old. He seems like he's been playing forever, but he's only 25 and will hit free agency. And by the way, I don't know if you saw this, that Bryce Harper, who's under contract to the Phillies until he's 38 years old, he does not have an opt-out in the deal, loves Philadelphia. Philadelphia loves him. He's talking about a contract extension. He's been hurt a lot in his career. I think eventually he's going to be a DH. He's playing first base now, and it looks like that's where he's going to stay. But he wants a contract extension. Well, I guess based on some of the numbers that are being thrown around now, when he got $330 million over 13 years, that's not a big deal anymore. So I guess that's just a way of asking for more money. But to think that, and he might, but I can't imagine that he'll still be this good when he's in his 40s. But hey, they love him there, and they may actually do it. They may actually give him. He's gotten them to the World Series, and he hasn't won it yet, but he is one of the best players in the game, and they're giving him that kind of money. As for what the Nationals have done, they're very conservative so far. In the Rule 5 draft, they picked up a shortstop from the Florida Marlins, Nasim Nunez, who's 23 years old, so he's got a ways to go before he becomes a regular, and I don't know if he'll ever reach that here, but he's a prospect there. And they also signed Juan Yepes, 25 years old, from Venezuela. He was in the Cardinals system, batted .183 with 2 homers and 65 plate appearances. This is Mike Rizzo on acquiring Nunez and what he's expecting from him.
A young player with some elite tools. He's good scouting reports on him. We've seen him a lot. We did a lot of work on the makeup and the attitude and that type of thing. But terrific defensively. It plays elite level shortstop, arm, range, hands. Can play anywhere in the middle of the field, and big time base stealer. We think that there's some upside of the bat. The bat's far behind the defense, but a guy that we think has more bat in there, takes his walks. He's pretty selective at the plate, it was something that we really trying to get as many toolsy players up the middle of the field as possible, and we thought this was a way to get some kind of an elite type of tools player onto the roster.
Yeah, and he may be a defensive replacement early on. So, again, 23 years old. More from Davey, and this is about Patrick Corbin. And I was just looking at his ERAs since he was so great during that 2019 season. He has led he's led the league in losses the last 3 years. 16 losses in 2021, 19 losses in 2022, and 15 losses last year. And his ERA, since he was so key in them winning the World Series in 2019, and again, I'm not in any way criticizing the signing, because if you win a World Series, to me, you buy yourself 10 years of tranquility. That's the way I look at it. But his ERA since the 2019 season, 4.66, 5.82, 6.31, and 5.20 last year. And you might say, wow, what an anvil around the neck of this team he has been. I mean, he's performed nowhere near what he did in 2019, and every time he takes the mound, it looks like he's going to lose. Well, here's the Davey Martinez spin on that, and he actually will lay it out here that shows you that Corbin was a big contributor over the last 4 years.
I've seen a lot of upside last year with Corbin. I mean, the record doesn't indicate it. I know the ERA didn't indicate it. But this guy takes the ball every 5 days, doesn't complain, and like you said, he gives us the innings we need. We were able to develop our younger players because he can do the things that he did, and he gives our bullpen a breather. So I went and looked back at some of this past year. It typically is one inning where he kind of loses things. And if we can get him to score, get rid of that one inning, he's going to do big things for us. He really is. So. I know that he's working hard already. He's down in Florida. So hopefully he comes back and he has a year that we know he's capable of having, the year that he gave us in 19.
The crazy thing, I was just looking at his age. He's 33. He's not that old. The one thing they could do was is if he pitches well this year, and he's not going to have a great team around him, but if the ERA stays decent, you might be able to trade him at the deadline. And I wonder if it's even possible, because he is such a good citizen with this team, that they look to re-sign him for less money. He got $140 million in his contract to come here, which has one more year left, but I wonder if they might even bring him back for 2025. I don't think it's out of the question. And then the Nationals went from 55 wins in 2022 to 71 last year. The expectation as they move into year 3 of this rebuild from Davey?
I just want them to compete. I mean, we saw a lot of growth last year, especially in our younger players. I want to be hungry, be ready. We're close. We really are. These guys, they feel like they can do some special things. Our core young guys have towards the end of the year, they started getting it. So I want them to build off of that and be ready to go in spring training.
Okay. So it's December, and the winter meetings, I guess, will wrap up this weekend. The big fish is Ohtani, still not signed, may go to the Dodgers, may not. We'll have to see. But, Nationals not making a big splash at the winter meetings, and they were not expected to do that. Some football. I mentioned that the season ticket prices are going to go up next year for the Commanders, even though this is going to be another miserable year. Back in March, team president Jason Wright said they had actually cut prices for years for a good reason, because people didn't want to go to the games and hated the owners. But he said you can't do that anymore. You can't continue to cut prices. And this is supposed to be, supposedly is only the second increase they've had since 2013. And they said that 10,000 of the seats will not see an increase. Football tickets relative to other sports really aren't that bad. But the thing about the NFL, at least for me, and it's different certainly for hockey. There's nothing like being at a hockey game. And I think basketball is better in person. And baseball is certainly better in person. Football is better at home. It really is. I mean, the HD and not having to wait in line at the bathroom and at the beer line. I mean, there's a lot of advantages to being home. Now, there was a time, there was Camelot here where getting into RFK was a big thing. But now, even with the team, even if they improve the team, it's still a decrepit stadium. Nobody wants to go there. And I don't know how you necessarily do this. Now, they're providing some amenities, including free food and sodas for the club level. They are also going to give you, and I don't know who would wear this, but I saw a bunch of them when I was out at the game this week, this gaudy W with a chain around it. I'm not going to wear that, but maybe somebody young. Rex, would you wear a chain with a big W around it?
Like maybe to a game, but
you would.
I don't have any Commander stuff.
Yeah.
I rock all the old stuff, but no.
I don't have any stuff either because I haven't wanted to put any money in Dan Snyder's pocket, but now that's changed. I may I get some stuff, but I'd like them. I think they're going to change the name eventually, but probably not next year. What Michael Phillips has in the Times today about the prices, one fan tweeted his pair of tickets at the 50-yard line went from $3,058 to $3,924 on the high end of the increase. According to the team, the average ticket holder will pay an extra $1,250 a month next season when paying on an annual plan for tickets. And the capacity now, they filled it up on Sunday. It's down to 63,459. At its peak in 2010, 91,000. But that's a lot about how the Dan Snyder thing operated. More football. This is Dan Orlovsky, who does a very good job of breaking down film. And it seems to be a foregone conclusion that Caleb Williams of USC will be the number one pick. He's opted out of USC's bowl game. Local guy, went to Gonzaga. Could the Commanders sink low enough to take him? Maybe. But Orlovsky, after looking at the tape of him, is not convinced that Caleb Williams should be the number one pick.
He's listed at 6'1", 210. So what is his size actually? That's starting point. And the reason why I think that's going to matter for teams, and that's going to be, again, a preference thing, Dan. If we find who are the last 4 or 5 quarterbacks, and I've been swayed in this world, to be honest, that were not the biggest guys and went early. So Baker Mayfield, he's kind of had this roller coaster of a career. I'm a Baker guy, but he hasn't played like the number one pick. Kyler Murray, Bryce Young, obviously this year. So some of the smaller stature guys, they haven't necessarily excelled. And I do think that there's some fair conversation, because if you are a smaller guy, I think Kurt Warner talks about this all the time. You better be awesome in structure. You better be an absolute dude when it comes to like seeing it and throwing it and playing with the anticipation of ball placement. So Caleb's not the biggest person. Teams aren't going to like that. Drake May is massive. He is your prototype. Okay. And then I think when it comes to the out of structure, in structure conversation, number one, he's unbelievable out of structure. When the play isn't there on the field as we expect it to be on paper, and he's got to go make something out of nothing, he's awesome. He is Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar in that regard. He does that a lot. He does not do in structure often. And the reason why, or you start to ask yourself, well, why didn't he? One, was he asked to do it a lot in Lincoln's offense? Did Lincoln Riley demand it from him and stress it from him? Because look at CJ Stroud. Ryan Day demands that of his quarterbacks in college. Well, watch CJ Stroud in structure right now. He's unbelievable. Number two, they had to score 40 points a game at USC to win this year. So you're naturally going to be big play oriented. I can't check the ball down, because if I check the ball down, the other team's going to score in 90 seconds. Yeah. And then three, he's probably one of the best athletes on the field every time. So you naturally lean into that. So I just think that there's going to be there's going to be teams that are sitting there going, how much can we get this young man to play in structure on a consistent basis? Because we're seeing that, Dan, and I know I'm going here, but we're seeing that be demanded of quarterbacks to be good in the NFL more now than we did 5 or 6 years ago. We just are with the style of defense.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if Caleb has to fit into a team or a team fits to Caleb. Like, used to be when you drafted a quarterback, you're like, come on into our system. Now it feels like teams are saying, we're going to adapt to your system. The Bears are already in that system with Justin Fields, right?
Yes.
Where you got to improvise, and not that that's what you want to do, but I don't know if that means a better fit for Caleb Williams with the Bears than, say, somebody else.
Yeah, so first of all, if you take Caleb Williams, you absolutely build around what he's tremendous at. But you also have to have the people on your staff that are going to develop him with the places he's not tremendous at. Because if you don't develop that part of his game, he never gets the consistent opportunity to have the things that he is rare at be the forefront. The team's defenses won't allow it. They're too smart and they're too good. And in regards to Chicago, obviously the conversation is going to be, is that the coaching staff that's going to be there and having that decision? Is Ryan Poles, their general manager, going to say, hey, didn't necessarily develop Justin the way I wanted, so to speak. So if they move on from Justin and that coaching staff, then who's the people that get to steward if it's Caleb or a Drake May, with that first pick? But 100%, you build around his skill set if he's your pick.
And I think he will be the number one. I don't know if the Bears will still hold on to it by then, but what happens between the end of the season and the draft, there's a lot of mind changing, and Mel's big board changes all the time. But I think he's been on the radar too long, and it's been considered to be too good to pass up. And I would be shocked if Caleb Williams is not the number one pick of the draft.